welcome back. This is our third Meet the Designer video for Yarn Shop Day, and it's my turn this time, but I'm going to do the little intro. So a little bit of Zoom housekeeping for you. If you're joining the call, please will you turn your video off and turn your sound off, mute yourselves, so that it's just myself and Vicky that are speaking. Thank you very much. I'll hand over to Vicky because you're my interviewer.
I am. So welcome to this interview. I'm talking to Faye from Unravel Unwind. So Faye, to start off with, tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm nearly middle-aged, as you can tell from my grey hair. Sold my house last year and moved on to a powerboat and now live on a river in Kent with my partner and our two German shepherds, who have been very well behaved today and are letting us get on with these calls. Normally they put in an appearance and climb on my lap. Yeah, that's a little bit about myself.
Cool. So how long ago did you learn to crochet or knit? Crochet, definitely.
Yeah. I was very fortunate that my granny, now I've done it, now the dogs are coming in. I actually learnt to knit and crochet back in the mid-80s when I was about 8 years old. My granny could do both. She tried teaching me knitting first, but being a very uncoordinated child, I really struggled with two needles and holding the yarn. So knitting, I found that really difficult at the time. Although I could do it, it was just a bit cack-handed and all over the place with my elbows up here and things. She decided she would teach me to crochet, which I picked up a lot easier. And she didn't just teach me granny squares, she was quite thorough, and I remember having a go at broomstick, hairpin, Tunisian, various different techniques, and she insisted that I would be able to read patterns, so she spent a lot of time teaching me how to pattern read. But that all kind of stopped when I hit about age 10 or 11, around about the time when the Knitting and Crochet Guild did their Guinness World Record breaker for the largest blanket in the world, which I took part in. I had a couple of squares go into that. I kind of gave up shortly after that and didn't touch it again until 2013.
Wow. Did you remember all of that? Did you have to relearn anything?
I didn't think I remembered, and I remember going to Granny and saying to her, will you teach me to crochet again? Her answer was a crochet hook, 100-gram ball of double knit yarn, and the Peyton's Learn to Crochet book. And as she handed it to me, she went, there you go, I'll see you next week. And I'm like, what? I don't know how to do it. And she went, yes, you do. You already know. So I went away, played around with the book for a week, and it came back. It literally flooded back. Yeah. My body remembered how to do it, even
muscle memory.
My conscious mind couldn't remember the name of the stitches and things, but it did come back very, very quickly. And it wasn't long before I was starting to progress on from beginner to intermediate patterns. So yeah, it comes back. So if you learn as a child,
things you learn as a child you can pick up again really easily. So what does it mean to you to be able to crochet?
The reason I came back to it was for escapism. I've been out of work for a couple of years due to chronic fatigue syndrome and ME with fibromyalgia. And in 2013, I was ready to go back to work. So it was just that insanely, mind-numbingly boring job hunting. And I wasn't getting anywhere. 4 months of, not even rejections. I just wasn't getting any interviews at all. And it was becoming very demoralizing. So that's why I chose to start crochet, to get myself off the internet and give my mind something else to do. Yeah. And it really was escapism, and I found that I wasn't falling into the pits of despair quite as significantly because it gave me time to just zone out, and I found that the repetitive motion of crochet was enough to keep my mind sane. So,
well, yeah, I've often described it to people as thinking with my hands. Because it whatever is going on in your brain, whatever you're wrestling with, even designer's block, just crochet anything, something, because your hands help you think.
Oh yeah, designer block, I go straight to a granny square. Yeah, because you know how to do it. You don't need the pattern. It just flows, and it does help get that designer block.
Yeah, definitely,
absolutely.
So this is a good one. Describe your workspace. On a boat.
On a boat, at the moment on a boat. I actually have a studio space in Rochester in a lovely Art Deco building called Intra, but thanks to lockdown and COVID-19, I could go in, but it would require logistics and booking and making sure I was there at not the same time as other people because of space and ventilation. So all my work this year has been from pretty much where I'm sitting now on the boat. We've got a lovely cockpit space, so during the summer months I was actually working up in the cockpit and overlooking the river and the beautiful rolling hills opposite my boat. So while other people were struggling with the confines of lockdown, I was actually thoroughly enjoying my space and enjoying myself, because the views are just incredible. And how can you get sad when you've got water and nature literally on your doorstep? So yeah, that's my workspace.
Cool. So how did you decide that you were going to start designing after you got back into crochet?
I didn't. My early crochet career, I did a lot of patterns from Simply Crochet, Inside Crochet, downloads from Ravelry, and I was quickly finding that I was either having to adapt something or rewrite it because of mistakes, like Helen said in one of the previous calls about how a lot of free patterns do tend to have a lot of mistakes in. So I was finding that I was having to correct those mistakes, but I didn't always write it down. I met Helen in 2014, and for 3 years she was on my case. Write it down. If you've made changes or you're starting something from scratch without a pattern, write it down, write it down. I'm like, oh no, I don't need to do that, it'll be fine. But after 3 years of being put under the thumb, write it down, I actually did start writing down my ideas, and sometimes I couldn't read those notes back to myself and recreate it, and that's where Helen came in and started mentoring me and showing me the ropes, the basic ropes, how to lay your pattern out so that you can recreate it. So I didn't choose to design it like yourself and like Helen. It just happens.
Yeah, it chooses you. So when you're designing something, where does that start? What inspires you?
Usually stuff that I've observed in daily life. So if I wanted a bowl that was a little bit quirky, I'd just sit down with a ball of cotton and make a bowl. Baskets, they're always useful, so I'd make baskets. Sometimes Helen would go, I've got this ball of yarn, do you want to try and make a one ball pattern from it? So a lot of my designs actually came from Helen saying, I've got this new yarn, here's a challenge, it's got to be a one ball pattern, go away and see what you can make with this one ball. Other times it's from the magazine call outs. I don't always submit to the magazines, but I do find their call out sheets quite useful with their mood boards and their themes. So they've been quite good in inspiring me as well.
Can you give us a bit more information? Describe what does the call out look like? Because some people that are listening might be interested in designing. So what do they send you, and so what do they ask?
So it normally comes as an email, and they'll be looking usually 3 to 6 months ahead of when you receive the email. So the emails this week would be for spring next year. they would have a colour scheme that they're looking for in particular. So they'll lay out 3 issues. So each issue will have a different colour scheme. It would have a different theme. So I think one of the earlier ones this year was monochrome. So that was the theme, monochrome. And they set up Pinterest mood boards, which are all themed. So it'll be in the colourway that they're looking for. They'll give you a list of items that they're specifically looking for. So some months they may not want blanket submissions because they've got 101 different blanket submissions from earlier call outs or things like that. So toys for children, so they'll just say toys, or useful objects for around the home. So that's kind of like your call out submission is in that.
You get lots of information to kind of get your mind thinking about it.
Yes.
And then put that together and send that back.
You can do it. However, the deadlines can be quite fast. Sometimes they only give you sort of 7 to 14 days to come up with an idea and submit it. So, which is why I don't always submit to the magazines, because I don't always have that idea that instantly.
And then there's, if they accept your idea, then there's the deadline of when they need the samples by, which is always at least 2 months before that magazine issue comes out. So
yes,
very time focused.
It is very time focused. Absolutely.
What's your most popular pattern?
See, now I've gone for 2 here because most of my designs are free downloads.
Yep.
I've only got about 5 or 6 purchasable patterns because I'm still new in that department, and Helen's teachings was to get some free designs out there first to start helping people get to know you. So actually my most popular pattern, which is I think I've had about 250 downloads now, are these cotton chakra bowls. I've called them chakra because they're in the colours of the chakras.
They're really cool.
And they actually they stack. They're only little, and you can do them in any colour you like. So this one has actually been my most popular free download. But when it comes to purchasable patterns, it has to be my herringbone socks. These are very comfortable. I called them herringbone because I did them in herringbone half trebles, which makes them stretchy.
Nice and stretchy.
Yeah. And the Adriafil Cowser sock washes up really well. These are about 2 years old now, and they are wearing very, very well.
Yeah, definitely.
So as a purchasable pattern, this one is the most popular. And I know that Helen's done an offer for this for Yarn Shop Day. So you buy the yarn that's needed and you get the pattern with your purchase. So yeah.
And obviously designing is your day job then?
No. No. Designing kind of happens on the side, as it were. It was becoming more of a day job until we went into the first lockdown with COVID-19.
Yeah.
So my day job is actually running our subscription service on Patreon for Unravel and Unwind. So our subscription service enables people to take part in video craft and chat, so like we're doing today, Monday through Friday, but also they get video content. So it'll be a variety of different crafts that we've been trying out, so our journey with other crafts, workshops once a month online as well for our patrons. So there's a lot of video recording and a lot of video editing that goes into that, and that's kind of become my day job, is all the videos for Patreon and for our YouTube channel. So designing has been happening on the sidelines, but I'm going to incorporate all of that into Faye the designer. So what I'm going to be doing, my next series of videos that we're going to trial with our patrons, is actually based on my free pattern downloads, which are written patterns. I'm actually going to do some video recordings of translating the written pattern into a video pattern,
yeah,
so that I can reach more crocheters who may not know how to read patterns, which I'm finding is a very common theme at the moment, with people have learnt on YouTube, but they've only learnt to copy.
yeah.
They haven't learnt to read written patterns. So I want to branch out down that route. So I am going to incorporate the designing into my day job with those videos.
So it's still crafty, although you've got quite a lot of technical stuff going on as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So what other crafts are you sharing?
So we've done a lot of visible mending. So
Ooh,
I love visible mending.
Yeah.
Mark, actually, on my Instagram, there's a picture of Mark's jeans that really do tell a story through the visible mending. We're getting to the stage where there's not a lot of original denim left, but every patch on his jeans tells a story. So we did a month-long not a month-long, did a workshop back in March for our patrons, going through the process of visible mending, how to incorporate it. We've just recently had a go at lino cutting and lino printing, which was really good, using the Artful subscription boxes. That was really good fun.
Yeah.
I do a lot of hand embroidery as well, which is actually quite calming. I like that as a change from the crochet. And what I've been doing for the video series of that is did you ever see the Sophie's Garden tote bag that Ship Years brought out earlier this year with Deirdre Ace's mandala design on it? I'm using that as my video series on learning new embroidery stitches and techniques. So they're a little mini series on our YouTube. So that's been quite nice. So I'll do that as well. And there's a whole variety of other stuff. I can never remember.
I think scratch the surface of any crafter and you'll find there's a whole list of crafts that they've done, are doing, or want to do. Yes. Never just the one.
No, absolutely not.
So how would you describe your designing style?
Erratic. I don't think I've developed a style yet. I've dabbled with different things. So I've done a pinafore for toddlers, a bolero for children and teenagers, the bowls, the baskets, the socks. I actually don't have a style yet. I like to think that they're simple, but they're challenging enough for beginners moving into intermediate. Yep. However, my latest mandala behind me here is definitely more of an intermediate. Just because I find it easy doesn't mean that another person's going to find it easy. So I'm still finding my style, but I'll go with erratic because it's all over the place.
Do you have a favourite colour scheme that you come back to?
Pinks and purples, and shades thereof. Absolutely love pinks and purples. Not baby pink because I find that a bit pukey, but I do like bright pinks, hot pinks. Really vibrant purples and lilacs and lavenders are my favourite. But I really like autumn tones as well. However, I don't tend to make things in autumn tones. So I need to investigate other colour schemes a bit more.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have a favourite yarn or a favourite fibre?
All of them.
Good answer.
That's a bit generic, really, isn't it? I've realised I'm a bit of a yarn snob. I never used to be a yarn snob. Cheap budget yarn I was okay with, but in recent years I have become a bit of a yarn addict and a yarn snob. This year I discovered eucalyptus yarn from Hooked. It's Hooked Eucalyptus. It is 100% eucalyptus yarn. Doesn't smell like eucalyptus, and it's really silky and soft. and smooth, and it drapes really beautifully, but it is a little bit pricey, and I am still working on a design idea with the U-clips, so I think it'd be really nice for summer wear. So that's my absolute favorite at the moment.
Does it have anything, is it similar to bamboo?
It does feel a little bit like the really nice soft bamboo.
Yeah.
And it's silky and it's got a sheen. It's
have to investigate that one.
But I also like cottons because they're hardy, they're rigid, and they don't pill like wool. I mean, I wear a lot of wool because it keeps me warm. All my socks are in wool because it keeps my feet warm. But with wool and acrylics, you find that you get that pilling, the bobbling, especially sort of under the arms.
Yeah, wherever something rubs.
Yeah, and cotton doesn't do that. I've noticed it seems to last longer.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, more robust for bags and baskets and your little bowls and things.
Yeah. And surprisingly, really good for stuffed toys. I find it much better for the stuffed toys. They last longer.
So do you have a favourite novelty yarn?
Not really. I'm not a fan of novelty yarns. I'm on the autistic spectrum, so there are some textures I really can't touch.
Yeah,
they make me kind of really horrible. So novelty yarns I tend to steer away from. Eyelash yarns, tried it once. You can't see crochet stitches.
No, they're okay for knitting, but you cannot crochet with anything like.
Absolutely. It's and I steer clear of chenilles. Yeah, I'm not into novelty yarns.
Yeah, clean and crisp sounds like your way to go. So what do you have in your stash?
Oh, a little bit of everything. So my stash is actually separated over 3 different locations. Obviously I've got stash at the studio in Rochester, but that stash is mainly the stuff that we got for sale on our Unravel and Unwind shop, but I do dip into it for certain projects here and there. Personal stash, I've got a lot of the Shep Years Katona. That's really nice yarn to work with. I've got stuff hanging around for the last like 7 years. I've got a container here, a 10-foot container, because my boat isn't big enough for all my stuff. So a lot of it's in there, and that's a mix of Stylecraft, James C. Brett, some more Shep Years, their Callista range, stuff that was handed to me after my grandparents passed away, where, you know, sort of like Granny was an avid knitter and crocheter and had way too much yarn, a bit like the rest of us. We got more yarn than we will ever use in our lifetime, and I ended up with a lot of her stuff, and like me, she was a bit of a yarn snob. However, her favourite was Stylecraft Special, so I've got a lot of that, and as a beginner, that yarn is fantastic. It rarely splits, and can be really nice to work with. Just don't use it with a plastic hook.
Yeah, that's what I started with. I think we all start with that kind of, whichever brand it is, it's that yarn, that's that DK acrylic, and it gets you going and it gives you confidence, and then you move on, like you said, to the nicer, fancier, softer, more expensive yarn, which is why we end up buying just one skein of it that we then
I'm a fan of hand-dyed yarns, specifically sock yarns, and they range between sort of 14 and 18 pounds for 100 grams, which is quite a lot of money for one ball of yarn, but it's hand-dyed, and I'm only ever going to use it for socks.
And it's unique.
Yep.
Unique, beautiful.
absolutely. I think I've got a pair on at the moment. Oh no, they're not. That's budget yarn. I thought I'd have a quick look. And 100 grams of hand dyed 4-ply sock yarn is enough for me to get 2 pairs of socks out of, because I only wear ankle socks. I don't wear knee length.
Yeah.
So I know that I can get 2 pairs of socks out of 100 grams of hand dyed yarn. So I don't mind spending that sort of money on those.
And of course, it is both a hobby, a pastime, and you get something out of it. So the value for money, as I always explain to my husband, is that it's my hobby,
Yes.
but it's also my wardrobe.
And it's therapy.
Yeah. Oh, 3 times the value. Perfect.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if someone was thinking about becoming a designer, would you have any tips for them?
Yes, I would say have a go at patterns from a wide range of existing designers, different styles, different abilities, different techniques. Don't limit yourself to just one designer. Play around with a lot of patterns from a lot of sources, because that way you'll get a wider idea of how everybody writes their patterns differently. Different magazines have different style sheets. So if you're following a pattern in Crochet now and you've only ever done those patterns, and then you jump over to do an inside crochet one, it will take you a little while to work out the style of writing. So you have to look at lots of different writing styles and become confident with those before, and don't just jump straight in. Take your time, get it right, get your pattern tested before you even consider either self-publishing or submitting to magazines. The one that my bugbear is to follow a pattern in a magazine and then find errors and mistakes in the pattern and have to correct those.
It's more unforgivable in a magazine, isn't it, because of the process that it goes through?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel if I'd published a pattern with a magazine and I had an error in it, I would be so gutted and heartbroken.
Yeah.
That there was, but there, I mean, sometimes those mistakes might happen through the tech editing, through the copying and pasting from the designer's initial document into the typesetting for the magazine. So there are errors that happen there. And it is embarrassing when someone messages you and goes, there's an error in your pattern, which I had with the socks about 8 months ago. We had someone say there's mistakes in your pattern. And I know that every size of that pattern was fully tested more than once before we published it. And I did feel embarrassed. So be thorough. And even now I still find errors as I go through things, and they're usually typo errors.
Yeah, that's the way of it. So what is your favorite technique, and is there a technique you don't yet know that you'd like to know?
I quite like broomstick. I like the loops and the laces in broomstick. I haven't done a lot of pattern design with that, so I'd like to do a bit more with that. I think my fallback is always the granny square. It's great for clearing the mind. I like how hairpin looks, but it takes too long. So I avoid hairpin. I really like Tunisian, and I want to do a bit more in Tunisian, but it takes a little bit more time to do than crochet. It's faster than knitting, but not a lot. And I find that it uses even more yarn than crochet does.
Wow.
But it looks effective, and it's really good for cotton flannels. My boat is fully kitted out with cotton flannels everywhere, even as dishcloths. They're cotton flannels, and I use Tunisian, so you got the nice flat on the front and the bump, the knit ridge on the back. So you've got a smooth side and a slightly rough side.
So really good for cleansers and things.
Absolutely, I find it perfect for that. What would I like to? I'd like to do more tapestry crochet in the future. I don't know that it's a favourite because that's quite time consuming. But I'd like to try mosaic and interlocking crochet. So yeah, not beginner techniques by any means, but I'd like to.
Yeah, but it's that progression, isn't it?
It is.
As you learn more intricate techniques.
Yeah, and one thing I quickly learned with being a crochet teacher and then moving on to designing, there are so many styles and so many techniques out there. I think you will always be learning something new. I don't think we will ever be able to cover every aspect.
There you go. There's another value you get from the yarn. It's actually helping your brain to stay healthy because you're always learning. So you're always building new pathways.
That's it. I hadn't thought of it like that.
There you go. 4 values now from one ball of yarn. So this is the dreaded question. How many work in progresses do you actually have?
Not as many as Helen Free.
Fair enough.
Mark's just said, am I sure about that? I know there's quite a few in the container because obviously where we moved last year, everything got boxed up and it hasn't left the container yet. So there's a fair few in there. I've got a commission one at the moment, so I don't know if that counts as a work in progress because it's a page.
No, I think you're allowed one.
Yeah, so
and then everything else is a work.
This one's still a work in progress, but I'm just enjoying having it up on the wall at the moment.
Yeah.
Maybe less than 10, I would say.
That's pretty good, I think.
Yeah.
That's acceptable.
Yeah.
Any number's acceptable, of course.
It is. But I am someone that if I start something, I try to finish it. I don't like unfinished.
No, because that sits in your head.
Yes.
Do you have a favourite designer?
Am I allowed to say Helen Free?
You absolutely are allowed to say Helen Free.
I'll bow down to her. She'll appreciate that. When I started out, Helen was one of the ones that I came across first. And the first designs I saw of hers were the clematis wall hanging and her 4 seasons. And as an artist, they are absolutely stunning to look at. I've dabbled with the clematis and had a go, and I may finish it one day. But I'm not a fan of fine thread work.
Yeah.
So they were the first ones that really encapsulated me when I was a beginner. I admire the work that Mark Roseboom, the guy with the hook, I admire his work. His graph gangs for Freddie Mercury and Salvador Dali in the colours that he used, absolutely stunning. The crochet along behind me at the moment, the Dia de los Muertos crochet along, as a piece of art, I think it's incredible. I've never been able to come up with something like that. Deirdre Ace, I've never made any of her. No, I have made some of her projects. I haven't made any of the blankets, but I did make the puzzle balls for my niece a couple of years ago, and I can fully appreciate the technical ability that had to go into designing the puzzle balls. That's just phenomenal. Janie Crow, beautiful work. Again, I've never done any of hers, but they are really beautiful to look at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you talked about the plans for your videos and things, but what about your design plans for the future?
Well, I'm actually doing an online class at the moment, run by another phenomenal designer. She's doing an online garments and grading course for anyone,
that's awesome.
and for tech editors as well. So she's running the two alongside each other. So if you're interested in tech editing, you do the tech editing course, but I'm doing the garments and grading as a designer, because I really would like to, I can make stuff for myself, but it becomes more niche and it's more fitted. I want to be able to take those designs and be able to grade up or grade down. So I'm learning the maths behind that with Cara Badis as my mentor. So that's my current plan, so that I can do some clothing.
Brilliant. One last question, which wasn't on the list. If you could have any yarn at all for Christmas this year, what would Santa bring you?
That's difficult.
All of the yarn, maybe?
Yeah, all of the yarn. I think it would have to be along the lines of something like hand-dyed independent dyers, British independent dyers more specifically, because I do believe we have to support each other.
Yeah, definitely.
And I was a bit late on choosing an advent calendar for myself. I was going to go down the route of hand-dyed yarns in an advent calendar, and I missed out. So yeah, that, or a container full of sheep years.
Yeah, that would be perfect, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Both of those things, please, Father Christmas.
Yeah. So
on the advent calendar front, when I last looked, Fearless Yarns did still have a couple of their scrappy blankets advent calendars.
Fearless Yarns.
Fearless Yarns.
On Etsy.
On Etsy. They still had them available, because I nearly bought one, but I do already have one, and I felt that was really greedy.
Yes, and it does hit the bank quite hard as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does, but it's lovely. It's so much nicer than just chocolate in the morning in December.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll go check them out in a bit.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you for answering all those questions. That was really good fun. Well, that was great. Thank you to everyone that's listened to this interview or any of the earlier ones with me and Helen, and have a great rest of your yarn day.
Thank you.